Alright guys, so what we have here right now is my fork is completely apart. Oh, I figured out why. I figured out why it was leaking so much. There's a huge slice straight all the way down in the oil seal. How did it happen? I have no idea. It literally looks like someone took a razor blade to it and sliced it. It's right there, that little thing. So right there, that little guy is what we're gonna have to work on. We're gonna wet sand it with some 1000 grit sandpaper. And let's do that right now. So I have never done this before. Do not do what I'm doing. I just, right now, quarantine, I have no money. So I'm just gonna take a chance and do everything myself. With this. And we are just gonna this round. It's right there. Just gonna put that right over. And go around. You don't really want to go up and down, you want to go in circles. Okay, as you can see, it's right there by my thumb. It looks a lot worse than it is, but you can just barely catch it. And I know it's supposed to be to where you can't at all. But right now, I think that'll be okay. We'll just have to test it out. All right, after you've wet sanded everything down, that's when you're going to want to get all your pieces back together and start reassembly. So that's what you're going to want to do. Start with the outer tube. I hate when this happens. Look at all that. Look at that big mess. I only use the OEM stuff straight from Yamaha. And we're going to need an oil seal and a dust seal. Alright, so once you got everything, you're gonna want to get a little bit of grease. Right? Just gonna want to put it in there. Put that around. Washer that inserts in there. You're gonna have on the washer, you're gonna have a rounded edge and a flat edge, and the flat edge is what faces the seal. So you're gonna drop it in like this, the round edge, flat edge. You're gonna drop it in like that, just like that. To tell that if it is and the way to tell if you're putting it in right is that if you look at it like this, it's gonna have a lip face the outside. Also, if it has a spring, the spring is going on the inside. You're gonna want to get a little bit more grease and put that grease in that groove right there, right in there. You're gonna want to go around, get that in there. Get these off, you're gonna want to take a torch and heat up along the edge, and it'll really help this just pop right out. But since it's been a few days because of shipping, it's kind of hard to get in there. Heat that up just a little bit. One time around should be good enough. No problem. I'll just press that right in. Put that snap ring in. Now we're just gonna put this off to the side until we're ready to use that. Now before we start reassembling everything, we have to put oil. We have to put some oil in the compression. So we're gonna fill that up until about the threads. Because when you put this in, it is gonna come out just a little bit. That's fine. You gotta push a little bit, so you're gonna feel a click. On my bike, I have a Yamaha R6, and you can see that. And you can see this is a little triangle. I don't have that tool. That tool is about $200. But what I do have is this. And this works perfectly fine at getting that on. Seal. Pop that open. Now this is the little lip that catches all the dust. It moves up and down the fork. As you can see, there's the bottom of the fork. Now this lip will catch everything and push it down. You really got to make sure to clean these, otherwise you're going to end up with tons of scratches and having to replace your seals more often. Or worse, needing a new fork, which may be my case. Hopefully wet sanding down that scratch helped. After this, you're going to want to get your outer tube. Now do be careful around this top edge. Sometimes you can get an oil seal cut. There's gonna be a bushing in there. You want to make sure to get that around the bushing. Wipe off. Get that dust seal. All you need to do is just give it a little whack. It's time to fill it up with oil. And make sure there's no dog hair. Make sure there's no dog hair. You're going to want to put the dampening rod inside and begin to exercise, purging all that air. And after you have purged out all the air, and you can drop it and it all falls at an even pace, that's when you're going to want to start to measure it out. And I believe stock for this bike, the stock measurement for oil is 106, which is what we're doing. And we're going to see if we can get some oil. And we are, I don't know if you could hear that, we're sucking out air. Add some oil. Be careful not to spill. Now we're pulling out oil. In there, just put that all back in. With putting in the washer, you're going to want to hold this up. Put this down. Drop the spring in and catch that. Make sure to catch that. Okay, so I'm finally back. I'm finally back from Home Depot. Fuck. And figure out a way to let's please work. Put that bitch in there. This bitch on there. Fucking ass. Well, and if you're doing this by yourself, usually you'd have someone push down on this. But you could use a ratchet strap.
Okay, fuck you.
Nope. That's what we need right there. This turned out perfect. So now unthread this. Jam that in washer.
I don't care what this was for.
Lock that bitch down. Am I fucking done? Put all the settings back to normal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Preload. Six and a half threads. So now that we have the forks in there and they're at the level that you want, I'm just gonna go ahead, Go down. We're gonna get that wheel on right now. I guess I didn't need your help.
Oh, good. I wouldn't want to be in the shower.
If the pads are too close, an easy way to get them to uncompress them is just to stick a flathead in there all the way through. That'll get some space in there. Get it around the pad. My battery's about to fucking die. Alright, well, I just woke up. And last night, I began to tighten everything back up. All these guys, all the fork clamps, back up, torqued it to spec, and then looked on the ground and saw this little rod, the dampening rod that freaking goes inside, and it kind of, helped because the steering bearing was loose, and I could shake the front wheel back and forth, probably like, 3 millimeters, but still, I've never done that. That's probably from the first video when I accidentally dropped. I took out the stem nut, and the bike totally dropped on itself. It gave me the chance to take the stem nut off and, open the triple trees, check how the steering bearing is going. It looked fine. A bit of lube on it, lubed it up, and now it's perfect. Nope. And what we're gonna do next is rip off all the fairings, because as you can see, she needs some help. A couple weeks ago, I accidentally backed my truck into my bike. There's a huge line getting out of my driveway, and I had to maneuver around everyone else's car, and forgot how close my bike was to my truck. I just barely tapped it, knocked it over. We're keeping black. We're keeping the black. Black and gold, baby.